Okay, if you are not aware, this series of free coaching session is brought to you by PM Training School, that is a provider of PMI certification and scaled agile certifications. And we are authorized training partner with PMI and also transformation partner with SAFE. Before going deep into PMP, we will be covering some key concepts. For example, we will be talking about project management domains as per PMBOK version 7. We will talk about few core concepts of OPM, that is organizational project management, organization types, PMOs, project constraints, project roles, project life cycles, and many other topics before going deep into PMP certification. When we talk about performance domains, these are the key domains that PMI published in their PM body of knowledge, version 7. And this current body of knowledge is different from their previous body of knowledges. Previous body of knowledges were based on processes. This body of knowledge is based on principles, in total 12 principles that lead to these 8 project performance domains. And if we talk about these domains, basically these are the capabilities of a project manager to effectively manage a project. Let's have a quick look on them and then move further. The first domain is teams, how a project manager can acquire, can establish, can develop a project team who can work collaboratively and complete a project. Also, he or she should be able to choose the right development approach and life cycles as per organizational and client requirements and as per the nature of the project. He or she should be good at planning, should know that what are the requirements, what is the scope, is it clear enough to do upfront planning, or the requirements are uncertain, scope is changing, and we should go for agile planning. The project manager should be executing the project. That's the main task of a project manager. You can think of day-to-day activities of a project manager or a day in the life of a project manager. The focus of this project work should be delivery of the outcomes, delivery of the value for which this project is started. And this delivery should be matching with the project objectives. Measurements, including team performance measurements, how we assure that our team is performing as per their charter called team charter, and also how we are performing against our scope, schedule, and cost. Uncertainty, if project is a VUCA world project, VUCA, as you know, is volatile, uncertain, complicated, and ambiguous. If our requirements are very uncertain, how we should be selecting the right life cycle as per changing requirements, uncertain requirements of the project. And last but not the least is stakeholder engagement, very important. We should be identifying our stakeholder as early as in the project. We should be recording stakeholder interest, their influence, their status, if they are supportive to the project, or they are engaged to the project, or they are neutral to the project. And as per their stakeholder engagement analysis, we should be developing the right communication and engagement plan so that we can effectively our stakeholders throughout the project with the help of stakeholder register, for example. Now, let's talk about organizational project management. Basically, it is a framework for the value delivery, for strategy execution. It is just like an umbrella term that helps the organizations to effectively deliver the value to them and to their external clients with the help of portfolios. If it is a bigger organization, there could be more than one portfolio. But for most of the organization, we might have just one portfolio, under which we may have many sub-portfolios and multiple programs running or multiple projects running under one portfolio. So portfolio is, you can think of, portfolio management is something through which we try to achieve our organizational strategic objectives with the help of programs, projects, operations, and multiple support portfolios. Under portfolios, we may have programs, and program management talk about running multiple interlinked projects in such a way to achieve those targets or those outcomes which are not available with the help of an individual project. Okay, so program management is more about running multiple projects together, okay, taking care of their dependencies, taking care of their outcomes, and how to integrate those outcomes to achieve the intended value for which a particular program is started. And then there comes project management, that is basically a science and art, that is a use of our skills and knowledge and use of tools and techniques to effectively achieve project outcomes. Overall, this is called organizational project management and strategy execution framework. Any question about it? Okay, let's move further and talk about another concept. And this concept is about PMOs. I believe most of you are already aware of. PMOs are basically something that help us. These are established departments, established offices that really help the projects team to effectively execute the projects. PMOs could be supportive in nature, where they just provide the best practices, methodologies, standards, and templates. Also help project managers and project teams by coaching, mentoring, and training. However, the PMOs could also be controlling. And when I say controlling PMOs, they not only do what supportive PMO does, but also they ensure the compliance as per the standards, policies, and procedures. These standard policies and procedures could be internal to the organization, internal compliance, or could be external compliance, for example, for complying with government regulations or an authority regulations, so on and so forth. And then there comes third type of PMOs that are directive, and the directive PMOs not only do supportive and controlling work, but also run the whole show. They oversee the whole project. They are the one who establish the project teams, who coordinate the communication across multiple projects, and who are responsible for the project success or failures. There are also other type of offices, same like project management offices. For example, value delivery office. It's a new terminology used by PMI. Similarly, SAFE also use a terminology called VMO, value management offices. The concept is similar, but the focus is different. Focus of videos or VMOs are on the outcomes, on the value, okay, on producing value, not only just executing the projects, but ensuring that project is producing the value for which that project is funded or a product is started. Similarly, we have seen many Agile Center of Excellence, okay, or few also call them LACE, Lean Agile Center of Excellence. The purpose of these centers are similar to value management offices or PMOs, but also they coach the teams, they build the agile mindset, skills, and capability throughout the organization. So the organizations who are operating in an agile way, they normally do it with the help of Agile Center of Excellence. Any question about PMOs? Now, let's talk about organizational structures. We will be looking on organizational structure from the perspective of a project manager, okay, and his or her authority in different organizational structure. If we draw organizational structure on a scale, on a continuum, on one side, we have traditional functional organizations, which are like old style bureaucratic structures, vertical hierarchies where we manage the whole organization with the help of multiple departments and head of departments. On the other side of the continuum, we have project-oriented organizations. Project-oriented organizations are the organizations who deliver value for external and internal stakeholders, mean to client and the business itself with the help of projects, programs, and portfolios. Project manager has very little authority in functional organization, though they have full-time responsibility in project-oriented organizations. Then there comes matrix organizations. Matrix organizations are basically this concept was established to get the benefits of both functional organizations and project-oriented organization characteristics. Okay, matrix organizations could be three types. They could be weak matrix, could be balanced matrix, could be strong. Could be strong matrix. The strong matrix are very similar to project-oriented organization, but they also have their departments. Similarly, in this slide, you can also see what is how team member loyalty look like to all different type of organization, or team member reporting structure, or team member role, or the control of project manager in all different type of organizations. Recently, we have seen many other type of organizations, for example, organic organizations, or you can, organic structures, or sometimes we also call them simple structure. Normally, these are for the startups where we have a group of limited number of people, maybe 8, 10, or even lesser than that. And in these type of organizations, every person wear multiple hats and do all different tasks. Okay. Recently, with the introduction of Agile, we have seen another type of organizational structure. We call it hybrid or hybrid operating system. Hybrid operating system basically brings these organizational structures and agile way of innovation and creativity together to create a hybrid operating system. That is combination of not only stability coming from these organizational structure, but creativity and innovation coming from agile structure. That is like basically coming from self-organizing teams. Now, let's move further. But before that, if you guys have any question, just please ask. Okay, when you are doing a project, you really don't do project in a perfect environment. Your project, your work is always influenced by enterprise environmental factors that could be internal or external. You can think of EFs as the constraints that are imposed to you. For example, your organizational policies, or your competitors, or your market, or government, or regulatory authorities. Okay, but nevertheless, these are the constraints or limitations in which you have to operate your project. You have to meet your project objectives within these enterprise environmental factors. That's why considering these EFs are very, very important when you are planning for a project. On the other side, we have organizational process assets. Organizational process assets are not only the constraints, means you have to follow them, but also they are the guidance, or they are a help for you provided by your organization. These are basically processes, policies, procedures, project management plans, their templates, corporate knowledge bases. These knowledge bases could be codified. Codified means you can share this knowledge with the help of words, characters. You can record this knowledge, but on the other side, we call it explicit knowledge. On the other side, these knowledge bases could be of tacit type. When I say tacit type, mean they are non-codifiable. They are non-recordable. That is basically expertise of your team members, your subject matter experts, the knowledge. They cannot write it. They cannot share it by writing or through videos or through pictures or words, but they have this type of knowledge that comes with the experience. And there are different ways through which project manager can ensure that this knowledge is transferable. For example, peer work, okay, or job scheduling, or community of practices, etc. Any question about EFs or OPAs? Okay, guys. Now, let's talk about next core concept. These are called project constraints. There are many different constraints that you have to meet on a project. Top 3 constraints are given here. Okay, scope, cost, schedule. We also display them or understand them with the help of talent triangle. Okay, if any of these constraints are not met, you cannot say that your project is a successful project. For example, if you go over schedule, okay, then you cannot say. If your project is late by 6 months, then you cannot say it's a successful project. Similarly, when you talk about cost, if you initially estimated your cost, for example, 2 million, and then later it went up to 2.5 million or 3 million, that is most of the cases with most of the projects. But you really cannot say, okay, as a project manager, I have completed this project successfully. Similarly, scope is the work, the deliverable that you need to produce. On top of these constraints, we also have quality, customer satisfaction, risk, and resources as a constraint that we need to cope with. Now, there is a question, can we compromise the quality because of the schedule? Basically, it's always tough to determine what is the limit of the quality. Okay. Quality is something that that should be built in our work. Okay. So when we talk about quality and schedule, basically you must have to see that what are your client requirements, okay? And you should be talking openly with your client. If there is very strict schedule, then quality might suffer as well. However, there is no limit of quality. Always remember, you must have to determine an optimum point for the quality, okay? Where basically your all other constraints should not be suffering, because you cannot determine peak of the quality. Quality is something that is in the eyes of your client. Okay, so it's always tough, but open talk with your project sponsor, with your client would be very helpful. For that purpose, we always say that your scope, and scope also include quality requirements as well. Okay, your scope must be signed off by the project, by your project sponsor or the client. Okay, so that you can later talk about it. That's why we establish our baselines: scope baseline, schedule baseline, cost baseline. Okay, we cannot say our schedule is established until we don't put all the quality requirements into it. And if your client is not interested, then you have to find the ways. Okay. Specifically with the contract deviation, mean that is like a deviation from the schedule or deviation from the scope, Julian?
Dr. Faiz,
Yep.
my question is for that contract deviation. So to facilitate or mitigate the schedule, right? Just in case we have some constraints like COVID or like delivery. So to mitigate it, there are some like proposals normally coming from the contractor, from the APC, which might touch some deviation from the contract just to get the schedule. It's always tough, just as you say, but you have to openly have this, and might be some indemnification later or something else.
True. So I think open conversation with the contractors, okay, and having good negotiation skills. Uh, that will be really helpful to reach to a point that should be a win-win situation between you and your contractors. Okay,
Yeah.
but you
Might
must be
might go to letter of undertaking later, just in case, just
true.
like an addendum to the contract, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Face.
Yeah. Now let's move further and talk about different project management life cycles and development approaches. In fact, there are three approaches that are currently very useful. One is from the 20th century. We call it plan-driven approach or predictive approach. We also call it waterfall approach. And then we have agile approach that is new. It started in 1990s, but we have agile what we call it, manifesto published in 2001, and then we have a hybrid approach. Hybrid approach is combination of both plan and agile approach. Plan approach is, you can think of it, establish a detailed plan upfront, then we follow that plan to execute our project activities and monitor and control our project work. On the other side, in agile approach, that is more like a change-based approach. We really don't develop big upfront plans. We just do just barely good enough planning. We call it JBEG, just barely good enough. Okay, and we don't do detailed planning at all because we know that there could be changes in the project work, in the project scope, and then to cater those changes, we work in iterations instead of working in a sequence or in serial. Phase 1 completed, phase 2 completed, phase 3 completed. No. Instead, we work in iterations and we try to complete small items of work. We decompose the big chunk of work into small items. The key roles in waterfall approach is project managers, project team, and project sponsor. Okay. On the other side, in agile world, we may have roles such as product owner, scrum master, or team lead. Sometimes we also call them agile coach or facilitators, and then self-organizing teams, project teams. Okay. Value delivery proposition is in plan-driven approach. We go through all the phases first, and then we deliver our project at the end. Okay, so our outcome that is handed over to our client is at the end. For example, a construction project where we deliver a complete house to our client at the end. On the other side, in the iterative or incremental approach, that is basically agile approach, we keep on delivering small chunk of value to our clients over the time so that they can use it, they can provide us feedback, and so that we can keep on building our product or project in small increments. Now, PMI Talent Triangle for a project manager, either working in agile space or in waterfall space, three key skills that PMI determines. One is way of working. Ways of working include waterfall, agile, and hybrid approaches, and you should have a good mastery, good skills of using these techniques. Okay, power skills include both leadership skills and soft skills. When we talk about soft skills, for example, problem solving skills, communication skills, negotiation skills, team building skills, psychological safety, design thinking, and many other skills. And then business acumen. Business acumen is basically for the industry, for the business you are working, you should have a good understanding of their strategic objectives, how they operate, how is their environment, what is overall culture of the organization, how decisions are made, how the hierarchy of the organization look like. All those things you should have a good understanding so that your project objectives could be aligned with the strategic objective of the organization. Now let's move further. There is a question from jury. What is the life cycle of agile hybrid approach? For example, for traditional, it is in PLXMC. Okay. You are talking about initiating, planning, execution, monitoring, control. Okay. Well, we will talk about it. Okay. And believe me, when we talk about life cycles, initiation till closure, these are not the life cycle. These are not the components of the life cycles. They are different process groups. We will be talking about it. Life cycle of a project highly depends on the industry. For example, life cycle of a construction project would be different from the website development project. That would be different from an R&D project. That would be different from a government project. So life cycle is specific with the industry. However, in each project, we initiate our work, we plan for it, we execute it, but they are not really the component of our life cycle. We will talk about it later. Okay, and then you will have some more idea about these initiation, planning, execution, etc. So there was a question by Yuri. Now let's move further and talk about, the thing you were talking about, project life cycle and phases. We will talk soon. Project management approaches, project management process and knowledge areas, starting with the project life cycle. As I already told you, project life cycle highly depends on the industry. Okay. The life cycle of each project is different from another project from a different industry. Here, I am giving you an example of a marketing project that is development of a website. Okay. A life cycle is nothing but the combination of multiple stages, or we call them phases. For example, if you look on this life cycle of website development, there are only a total 6 phases. Okay. Starting from need assessment, developing website structure, designing different components, and then development of those components, testing or quality assurance, and then migrate to live. For example, if we really want to complete this project will be initially chartered or initiated. Okay, this is called initiation of a project. When a project manager is assigned, when key resources are assigned, when high-level budget is given, high-level schedule is given, this is called initiation. Based on this project charter or initiation, we develop a big plan. In Waterfall Approach, we develop a big plan. This is called planning. Okay, and in this plan, we think about all these different phases and try to complete, we try to plan for these phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, all the way to, for example, phase 6. Okay, and for each of these phases, we identify what work we need to do. We call them work packages. And for each work package, we identify different activities. That's what we do during the planning stage. And then what we do, we start executing our project. Okay, and how we execute it, we follow this plan. Okay, for phase 1, we do activities related to need assessment. In phase 2, we do activities related to website structure, so on, so forth. And at the end, when our project is completed, because we were closely monitoring and controlling the project work throughout all different phases, we get the outcome of our project, a sophisticated website, and we hand over that website to our client or to our stakeholder. Okay, so you can clearly see that phases are different than initiation, planning, execution of these phases, monitoring and controlling that is done throughout. When I say throughout, I'm not talking about only execution end. I'm talking about planning, execution, and even till closing of the project. Okay, so it means that all these process groups from initiation till closing keep on going on. Okay, I hope you got some idea and have seen the difference between project lifecycle and these process groups that we call initiation, planning, execution, etc. Now let's talk about the same project. Same project, but with the help of an agile approach. What we do, we don't do any upfront planning, a big upfront planning. We don't do. We do a high level planning, and then what we do, we create a backlog of the work. Okay, sometimes we call it product backlog, for example. And in this product backlog, we decompose our big chunk of work in the form of features or user stories. Okay, we prioritize them and put in a sequence in this backlog. And then what we do, for small feature, not for the whole project, for a small feature or multiple user stories, okay, we plan, we conduct the need assessment, we develop website structure, but only for one feature, okay? We design it, we develop it, we do the testing, and we migrate it to live. On the outcome, we get that feature, one feature or two features or multiple user stories within one feature. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to control this type of uncertain complex project where we feel that, okay, requirements could be changing by decomposing the complex work into small chunks of work, and then run all the project phases only for small piece of work. Okay, and in these phases, obviously, we initiate, we plan, we execute, we monitor and control, and then we complete it or close the delivery of this feature. And then we take next set of features, okay, feature 2 or feature 3, and then start doing again, where sometimes we call it feature factories. Okay, so if you look closely, for small chunk of item or for a small feature, we pass through all different phases within 1 or 2 weeks. This is iterative incremental approach that we call it an agile approach. Any question about it? Okay, so let's talk about agile a bit. Now, you know, the waterfall or traditional approach was started in the start of 20th century, and there was a entrepreneur, a process methodologist named Frederick Taylor. He developed that approach for waterfall. A process-defined approach, where we define the process and then we follow that process. This approach, this waterfall or plan-driven approach was highly adopted throughout different industries: construction, manufacturing, retail, etc. So same happened when computers were invented back in 1940s, 50s. Computer languages were initiated, and we start doing software projects. We adopted this approach of developing plan and then following the plan. But soon it was realized by many other thought leaders in the sector, for example, Demings and many other. They realized that this approach is not going to work because of changing technologies and changing requirements of the clients. Because clients, with the invention of internet, clients are learning very quickly. Because of their continuous learning, their requirements are changing, and our current approach of developing a plan, then following a plan is not really helpful. So that's why we have seen in 1980s or 1990s, the software that were developed, out of their 100 of features, we normally used to use maybe 5 to 10 features of that software, isn't it? But what was the reason behind it? The reason was all other features were obsolete or of no use of us. Okay. Because of that, in 1990s, many different methods arise. The purpose was to meet the client requirements, to meet the changing requirements of the client, so that we can provide a competitive edge to our clients. Okay, so how can we do it? When we bring business and technology people together, so that we can bridge this gulf of expectation, this gulf of evaluations between business and technology people. And around 17 different software thought leaders, they gathered together in Utah, a skiing place in USA, and they published an Agile manifesto, and Agile manifesto is shown in front of you. I believe most of you are already aware of this Agile manifesto. Okay, I'm not going in depth of it, but what we are saying that these things on the right, they are very, very important, but we prefer things on the left over things on the right. Okay. Now, just for the sake of completion of this workshop, I'm not going in depth of it, but if you have any questions, you can ask me. Okay. Agile mindset. Agile is not a method, it's not an approach, it's not a framework, it is a mindset. Okay, and the mindset is based on this previous Agile manifesto we just talked about, where we focus on individuals and their interaction, we focus on developing the right products, we focus on customer collaboration instead of wasting time on negotiation on the contracts, and we respond to change. We prepare ourselves to respond to change. That's why we use iterative and incremental approach instead of following a plan. So this is Agile mindset that we can understand with the help of these 4 core values. Just a minute. In these 4 core values, 12 principles. I am not going in depth of 12 principles, but if you want to know about 12 principles, please feel free to ask and we can discuss about it. And then around more than 50 Agile methods that are available in the market: Scrum, Spotify, DSDM, Crystal Families, Discipline Agile, Nexus, Safe, you name it. Okay, yeah, but the right way is not to start with a method. The right way is understanding the mindset, adopting the mindset, and become the advocate of this mindset, and then choose any method you like. For example, PMI's discipline agile method. Okay, now what I did is I chose one method that is very, very lightweight, simple, and is there in the market for a long time. This is an agile method called Scrum. Okay, normally Scrum is for smaller teams. We call it plus minus 7 team, mean a team of 5 to 9 people. Again, there is no hard and fast rule to having 5 to 9 people, but the point is it is very effective for small teams. Okay, what we do, we understand Scrum with the help of 3 things. One is called Scrum Roles. Other is called Scrum Events or Ceremonies. And last is called Scrum Artifacts. Okay. Now, the first role is Product Owner. Second one is Servant Leader, or we call it Scrum Master. And the last one is Self-Organizing Team or Development Teams. Product owner is basically proxy of the customer. He or she is the one who takes care of this artifact called product backlog. So this is the artifact product backlog. He or she works with the internal and external stakeholders, get their requirements and put them in the product backlog, prioritize it, keep on refining it, keep on grooming it over the period of time. Okay. Now, what team does, the team basically take the prioritized items in the sprint planning meeting, they review it, they discuss it, they size and estimate the work that needs to be done, and they determine definition of done, how we will consider each work is considered done, and then deliver it over the period of 2 to 4 weeks, but we really prefer it shorter. We want it, for example, 1 week. Okay. Nevertheless, for example, here we took one feature, or within this feature, we took 10 user stories. For these 10 user stories, we did all the planning in this ceremony called sprint planning meeting. So this is one ceremony. And then we put the whole plan, the estimation of each of these 10 user stories in our sprint backlog. So you can think of this sprint backlog is subset of this product backlog. So sprint backlog is another artifact that we create. Okay. Now, for this sprint or iteration, both are same things. Okay. We start doing our work. We start completing that work. We work in a self-organized manner. Self-organized manner means we don't have any project managers or anyone who is commanding and controlling us. There could be team leaders. There could be scrum masters. Okay, who are helping us, who are working as a servant leaders, but we as a self-organizing team choose the work, we size it, we estimate it, we plan for it, we do it. And for the purpose of coordination, we do daily scrum. So daily scrum is another event that we do. Okay, this event is very short event for 15 minutes. We talk about 3 things, what we have done yesterday or what we have achieved yesterday, what we are going to achieve today. And if there are any issues that we need to solve. Okay, that's we keep on doing over the period of 2 to 4 weeks, and at the end we get a product. Okay, and this product is shown in the product review or sprint review, where we take our work to our stakeholders, for example, to our product owner. Okay, and we show that's what we developed. Okay, so product itself is another artifact. This is artifact number 3. Okay. The product owner look at the items we completed, they approve it, reject it, or ask for the changes. Whatever they do, they check it. Okay, and then we get the feedback from our product owner or our stakeholder or from our client. And this feedback is very quick, within 1 week or 2 weeks. Okay. Also, we do another ceremony called sprint retrospective. This is ceremony number 4. In this ceremony, what we do is we basically self-reflect. We talk about 3 P's: product, people, and processes, and how to improve it. We ask questions about the processes, on the product improvement, and our current way of working. That is focus on people, relationship, process, and tools. So this is Scrum process, very easy, but this is effective when we have smaller teams and very useful when we have complicated or complex projects. Any question about it? Okay, then there comes hybrid approach. Hybrid approach is a combination of both plan-driven and change-driven approach. Okay, the organizations or the teams who are shifting from plan-driven approach to the agile approach, they really cannot shift overnight, so they go for hybrid approach. And also, the nature of their industries are in such a way that they really cannot fully adopt agile way of working. So that's why they go for hybrid. Hybrid is the future of project management. That's what people are currently doing. And hybrid is not only the combination of waterfall and agile approach, it is the combination of all the good practices from everywhere, from lean, from theory of constraints, flow, system thinking, etc. Okay. And basically, in the hybrid approach, we as a team, with the help of our team coach or team leader, we choose the right practices that are effective for the completion of a project. Okay. Now let's come back to our waterfall approach. Waterfall approach. If we talk about PMI's framework, we have 5 knowledge areas, 5 process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, and closing. These 5 process groups include 49 processes. On the other side, we have 10 knowledge areas. A project manager should have a mastery of them, starting from integration, scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholder engagement. In fact, these 49 processes that we are going to talk about in the next session, they are grouped together into process groups, and also they are divided into these knowledge areas. Okay, there are, for example, 7 processes in integration management. Then there are 6 processes in scope management, 6 processes in schedule, 4 processes in control, 3 processes in quality, and so on and so forth. Okay, now let's have a look on this PMI's framework that comes from PMI Guide 6th edition. That was process-based, but it is very helpful to understand the flow of a project. It starts with the initiating, and the first process is develop project charter. Project charter is basically when you look on the business documents, okay? You consider them as an input. You look on enterprise environmental factors, the organization process assets, then you use different tools and techniques. For example, subject matter, expert judgment, meetings, analysis, and then you get an outcome called project charter. Project charter is the outcome of this first process from the integration management. And also you get assumption log. Assumption log is one example of project documents that are produced when you are doing your project. It's not compulsory assumption log as a separate document. It could be part of project charter. The second process of initiating is identify stakeholders. You can clearly see the first process was coming from integration management, but this process, though it is part of initiating, but it is coming from stakeholder engagement. That was our last knowledge area, if you remember. Okay, and the purpose of identifying stakeholder is what we really want is we wanna identify our stakeholders as early as possible, and then we want to record them in a document called stakeholder register. So outcome of this output of this process is stakeholder register. That is a living document where we keep on identifying and adding our stakeholders, not only stakeholders, but their impact on the project, their influence on the project, their interest and their power on the project. And then we try to make these stakeholders to the supportive of our project. If not supportive, then at least neutral of their project. Once our project is initiated, project manager is assigned, key resources are assigned, we identify high-level risks, we made high-level assumptions, we have seen overall schedule, a high-level budget, etc. Next stage is we need to plan for our project. When we talk about project plan is part of integration management, okay? Process group, and it consists of around 18 different sub-plans. For example, scope management plan, schedule management plan, cost management plan, all the way to stakeholder engagement plan. Also, it includes many different baselines called performance measurement baseline. And 3 baselines which are used for performance measurement are scope baseline, okay, schedule baseline, and then cost baseline. We measure our performance against these baselines. So this project management plan is a combination of scope management plan here, okay? And in scope management plan, what we do is we get the requirements, we collect requirements with the help of many different techniques, because we want to establish our project scope. We want to define our project scope. Once requirements are gathered, we are able to define our scope with the help of a scope statement, and this scope statement must be signed by the project sponsor. And then based on this scope statement and all the requirements we gather, we develop a work breakdown structure, a hierarchical visual structure that help us to manage our scope effectively. So all these things, they result in a scope baseline. If you really want to ask what included in the scope baseline, in scope baseline, 3 things are included: scope statement coming from here, work breakdown structure coming from here, and work breakdown structure dictionary that also comes from this process number 4. And then next is, under this project plan, we have schedule plan. Schedule plan talks about how we are going to schedule our project, and it starts with defining activities for each of the work item coming from work breakdown structure. We define the activities, we sequence them, and then we estimate the duration of the activities. After that, we run many different tools and techniques: resource optimization techniques, resource leveling, resource smoothing, and many other ways through which we develop a realistic schedule, a schedule on which we should have confidence. And then the third sub plan of this main plan is cost management plan. It talks about, for example, what is the cost of each of the activity we define here. Okay, and then we use many different techniques, many different ways of cost management to determine an effective budget that may be released in one go, or that might be released in phases. Okay. After that, we also have quality management plan. It is very simple. We develop a plan to manage the quality on our project that should be aligned with our organization's quality management system or the organizational quality management requirements. Okay, this plan goes there. It helps us to determine the quality activity that we need to do with the help of quality assurance teams. And then next one is planning for the resources, both human resources and physical resources. Okay. As per this resource management plan, what we do, we estimate our activity resources. Remember, guys, when we are estimating our activity duration or estimated cost, on the same time, we are estimating our activity resources. Never think that we are doing these steps one by one like a waterfall. No. It is called waterfall, but it is very much fluid. Okay, we do these things in parallel because we cannot estimate cost until we estimate our activity resources. Same is with the duration. Okay, but nevertheless, we estimate our activity resources. It results in a whole resource management plan. Also, communication management plan is a part of project management plan, and then risk management plan that talks about identifying the risks, their sources, their origins, then an analysis of those risks in a qualitative fashion, in a quantitative fashion, so that we can develop a risk response. We can plan a risk response. This risk response goes into our project management plan. And this risk response is basically saying if risk will come, what will we do? Okay. Also, this project management plan include how we are going to conduct our procurement. This procurement management plan include procurement strategies for all different type of procurements that we do for our project, so that we can execute those strategies during our execution stage. And then last but not the least is how to engage our stakeholders effectively. Any question about planning? In total, there are 24 processes in the planning. Now let's move to executing. Our project plan is developed and it is signed by our project sponsor. Now we have to direct and manage project work as per this plan. We are executing this big upfront plan. And while we are directing and managing project work, we are also maintaining project knowledge. Previously, this process was not part of PMI framework, but later PMI realized that project knowledge is not a sub-product, not of less importance. In fact, nowadays, knowledge is much more important than the actual deliverable. So that's why we have this particular process as a part of integration. In direct and manage project work, we take care of three things. We complete our scope by following our schedule and by spending our money. Okay, so all three knowledge areas, scope, schedule, and cost are covered here in an integrated fashion. While we keep on managing quality, manage quality is quality assurance. Basically, we really cannot inspect our quality, though we do it. Quality is something cannot be inspected. It should be built in. Otherwise, you cannot expect a real quality of the product. Okay. We develop our resource management plan. As per our resource management plan and the estimation of the resources, we try to acquire those resources, both human and physical resources. And then for human resources, because when we acquire them, they are not a team. Okay, we really want them to a high performing team. So we do activities to develop our team effectively with the help of motivational theories, organizational theories, emotional intelligence, all those power and soft skills. Also, we manage our team. That is our day-to-day activities, assigning work, checking their performance, their measurements, and how they are doing, etc. A day in the life of a project manager. We keep on managing communications. That is the communication plan that we develop. Are we following it? If we are doing the communication as per the chosen methods, are we using emails, or are we using more formal way of communications like status reports that are bad, in fact, okay, or real-time dashboard, or we develop a website for our big project and we are publishing data on it. If our communication is effective or not. If it is not effective, how can we improve it? We also implement risk response. When we implement it, when our risk comes, when the risk triggers, then we implement risk response. This is heart of risk management, implementing risk response. Conduct procurement by following our procurement plan and strategy, and manage our stakeholder engagement so that they should be supportive, they should be advocate of our projects, and they should not go against our project. Also, we should keep an eye on their level of power, level of interest, level of interest in the project. And then there comes monitoring and controlling. In fact, execution and monitoring and controlling, they go hand in hand. There are in total 10 processes in execution, 12 processes in monitoring and control, but all these processes, they are not run like step by step. They run in a very fluid way. For example, when we direct and manage project work, we monitor and control project work. Okay, and also we perform integrated change control. That is when a change comes from the client on the scope of the work, then we should be doing proper change analysis before bringing it to our change control board or our sponsor, who will be looking on our who will be looking on the change request made by the client, okay? And if they approve it, then we should be performing integrated change control. That is looking the impact of change on all different knowledge areas or all different plans and see what will be impact on the cost, on the schedule, on the quality, okay? Validate scope, this is basically, you can think of, if you remember in the Agile, I talked about product demo, that is product demo, or a walk-in. Okay, when a house is completed or a work is completed, you bring the client and show him or her the kitchen, okay, or the bathroom. If they are satisfied, they validate the scope. And then another process is control scope. Control scope is different from validation of scope. You control scope, your client validates scope. Control schedule is you measure the performance of your team's completion as per your schedule baseline. Cost control is where you measure your performance of cost expenditure as per your cost baseline. Control quality, though I already told you that manage quality is very, very important. It is to build the quality in, but control quality is then when we complete our deliverables and our quality, our testing team, they conduct inspection. Okay, that is called control quality, because what we want is we don't want to give faulty items to our client. Control resources, basically here we are not talking about human resources, but physical resources. For example, machinery, equipment, raw material, whole inventory management system. Monitor communication so that we can see our communication is effective or not. If it is not effective, we should be changing our way of communication. Monitoring risk, this monitor help us to identify if risk is going to trigger or not. If risk triggers, then we have to implement risk response. Control procurement, that is basically the relationship between supplier and client. As a client project manager, we must be ensuring that project work is done as per the contract or not. Okay, deliverables are produced as per the contract or not, or the statement of work or not. And then monitor stakeholder engagement. Why we want to monitor it? Because sometimes we don't know the stakeholders who were initially very non-influential, suddenly they become very influential. So we should keep on monitoring stakeholder engagement, and we should be adapting our strategies accordingly. And then if everything goes fine, we effectively close our project or phase of a big project. So this is overall picture of PMI's framework for waterfall project, in total 49 processes. Any question about it? On a project, normally we develop a project management plan, and you can clearly see that there are 18 different sub-plans that combine together into one project management plan. And then project documents, PMI identifies around 33 different type of project documents. Depends on the nature of your project, depend on the complexity, the size, the client requirements. You might be using few of them, you might not be using most of them, okay? But there are documents that are used on one project or another project, for example, resource calendar or risk register or issue log, etc. Okay. Now, that was about an overview of PMP. Let's talk about 16 tips to solve PMP exam question. These tips that I identified, they will really help you to solve almost half of your PMP questions. Okay, so let's do them together. Start with tip 1. Who will be helping me to read this? Anand.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Number 1, servant leader. Always acts as a servant leader, supporting and guiding the team instead of firing team members.
So basically, now our current way of working is changing. Instead of having command and control way, okay, or following that X mindset, okay, we should be more like a servant leader. The purpose is to empower our teams, okay, supporting and guiding our teams, making them self-organizing. It will really make your life easy if team is internally motivated, self-motivated, and really want to do work by themselves. It is more like a project leader than just a project manager. Okay, so this is important to keep in mind when you are solving exam questions. Next one, providing training. Who will read it for me? Andy? Andy, are you here? Unmute yourself.
Yes, sir, here.
Yeah. Can you read this for me?
Provide training, coaching, and mentoring to team members throughout the project to enhance their skills.
Now, always remember, you must be identifying the training needs of your team. Do they need technical training? And do they need training on power skills, project management skills? Do they need training on the client system? Okay. And also, if it is a bigger project, your team's training needs could be changing over the period of time. In the start, they may need a training on project management. Later, they need a training on a particular technical subject, on a software, on a tool. So you should be making arrangements for the training for your teams, and also keep on coaching and mentoring them throughout so that they can become like self-organized cross-functional team. Velocity. Basically, this concept is from Agile. This is used to measure the performance of an agile team, velocity talks about how many story points or how many user stories a team has completed in one iteration. Okay. For the PMI exam, remember, you must not be measuring the velocity of an individual team member, but for the whole team. Okay, so velocity is about team velocity. It is not about team members' velocity. 4, reward and recognition. You must be developing a system for reward and recognition. Both are different though. Reward are more like tangible in the form of monetary benefits or even some holidays, etc. But recognition is something totally different. It could be in the form of reward, but recognition could be just a subtle show of recognizing, maybe a tap on the back, you are doing great. Okay, so keep on recognizing throughout the work, but rewards could be periodic on the completion of different milestones. Okay, so recognition is much more important than just the rewards. Okay, but when you are developing reward and recognition system, consider the culture and political situation of the organization and the country in which you are operating. Conflict resolution, that is, you should know how to resolve conflicts. And for that purpose, you should have a good idea of different stages of conflicts. Is it on the initial stage of problem solving, or this conflict has reached to a situation of, for example, personal conflict or a contest, or maybe a crusade or a world war? Okay, what is the current situation? You should remember that you should not be interfering if the conflict is on the initial stages. Let the team solve those conflicts. But if that conflict reaches to next stage, then you should be intervening. And the purpose of solving a conflict should be a win-win situation, that is collaboration. But if collaboration doesn't work, sometimes you have to use forcing or smoothing as well, because project aims are very important. But forcing and smoothing are not the best practices. The best practice is collaboration, but sometimes you have to use forcing and smoothing. Okay. Problem impact analysis. Basically, here we are talking about integrated change control. That is, when a problem or change request come, okay, what should you do? You should not be running to sponsor straight away. You should be doing an impact analysis of the scope change or the problem, okay, and then discuss it with your team, okay, so that you can solve, you can find different alternative options to resolve it. Then you should go to the sponsor to share the problem, to escalate the problem, or to bring the change for their approval. Benefit to cost ratio. If you feel that project is like almost a no-go or obsolete, and we can clearly see that project is of no use at all, or benefit to cost ratio is invalid, maybe it's a good idea to talk with the sponsor, talk about, should we continue with this project, or should we kill this project at this point and consider it as a sunk cost. Start closing, that is, once your sponsor approve, once your client approve, initiate the closing process straight away. That may include writing final report, updating project documents, archiving, and releasing the team. Okay, and never ever think now sponsor approve it, project is completed. No, you have to close the project effectively. Change request. Once a change request is approved by the change board, we call it change control board, CCB, or by the sponsor or client, okay, you must perform integrated change control. That is, what is the impact of this change on all 18 different plans? The impact of change on the scope, schedule, cost, configuration, quality, resources, stakeholders, baseline, so on and so forth. Okay, and also you all might need to update some project documents, for example, stakeholder register, risk register, or issue log. Contract conflict resolution, the ways are negotiate for a win-win situation. If negotiation doesn't work, mediation involving someone else or going to the legal court, okay, as a last result is the way. So step 1, step 2, step 3. And this is from exam perspective, okay. Identify risk register, that is this thing is basically talking about, for example, you identified a risk. You know, risk is an unidentified event. If you identify a risk that didn't occur so far, okay, didn't occur, put it in the risk register. However, if a risk has been occurred, it is not a risk anymore. It has become an issue. So you have to update issue log, not the risk register. So from exam perspective, remember this concept. Stakeholder register, this is the living document. Remember, stakeholders may change over the period of time. Few stakeholders could be very influential in the start of a project, other could be in mid stages, other could be at the closure of a project. And sometimes a few stakeholders, they might not be that influential or important in the start of a project, but suddenly something happened and your those stakeholders become very, very influential. For example, one of my student was doing project in Vietnam. They were doing construction project. Suddenly, they found out Second World War ammunition and some guns and bombs and stuff. And suddenly, the Vietnam Army has become much more influential stakeholder as compared to they really didn't have any link with that construction site. Next, schedule performance index. We want SPI greater than 1. It means that we are ahead of schedule. CPI greater than 1, we are under budget and we are good. Complaints related changes should be recorded in the risk register. This is important from exam perspective. Okay, and then communications, which communication need to escalate to sponsor. Okay, when those issues and risks are critical and really need sponsor intervention or decision, then you must be escalating that to your sponsors. So these are some key tips to solve PMP questions. Now, at this point, I'm stopping the discussion and want you guys to ask any question that you have.
I'm good, Dr. Faiz. Thanks for taking this through.
Yeah, most welcome. I hope you got a quick refresher. There is much more depth in it, but as you can imagine, that was just a quick refresher.
Dr. Faiz, why do we need to write the scope statement when we already have the charter?
Well, charter is, you can think of it is approval of a project. Okay, we are starting this project. But at that point, if client has already provided you the requirements in the contract, it's another story. If statement of work is given to you, but if it is an internal project, consider it that you just got approval of that project. However, you need to gather requirements from all different people for whom you are doing the project. Okay, so charter is totally different than project scope statement. Charter is just an initial approval. And again, it may be a document, it may be an informal discussion. Your boss told you, oh, you are going to start this project. You are the project manager for next project. This is called project charter.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, most welcome, guys. And if you don't have any question, we can stop here. Okay, good. Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Bye.
Goodbye, sir. Thanks to you.
Most welcome. Cheers.